Hello and welcome to VMware vForum 2021. So me and Andres are going to be your host and guide you through this session of today. We're going to have a keynote starting off. We have a technical session that will go in through the SASE solution. In the end, we will have a Q&A panel. And during the session, you have the Q&A windows where you can ask questions. So just go ahead and enter them in there, and we will answer them in the end of the session.
Yes, and today we're going to talk about the concept of SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, and the concept of SASE POPs. So SASE is about moving stuff away from data centers and into the cloud. So the functionality basically from a lot of your users are never touching your own data center. And that means that we scale better and we get a more optimized environment. So the SASE concept is about being less router-centric and more cloud-centric, and bringing secure access and zero trust network access together with a secure and optimized environment, and also have an optimized and secure exit. But first of all, let's hand it over to Per and Mohsen.
Good day and welcome to vForum online for the Nordic and the Baltic region. My name is Per Gustafsson. I'm the regional director and super proud of leading our business with our customer in this region. With me, I have our expert in workplace environment, Mohsen Ali.
Hi, Per, and good morning, everybody. Thanks you for joining. My name is Mohsen Ali. I work as a digital workspace specialist at VMware. I'm located in Denmark, covering the Nordics. Often visit my colleagues in the UK and the rest of Europe, virtually, of course. But this is the new normal we're all living in.
Well, yes, it is. And I'm in Stockholm, so we're doing this 100% online. And you know, this area of technology is something that's close to my heart. I've been super focused on the digital workplace and talking about the need for it. And before the pandemic, you know, some people really understood it, and some might have, you know, thought that what we have is good enough. I think today everybody understands what we've been talking about, because it's about giving people the tools to be productive and engaged wherever they are. And everybody understands that now. So you need to be able to work from anywhere, work from home, work from the office. And I do think that the physical location will be kind of optimized for what you need, right? So if you need to sit by yourself, you know, quietly and doing a piece of work, maybe it's best to work from home. But engaging with other, brainstorming, strategy meeting, maybe it's more suitable from the office. And the expression "good enough," you know, when people talk about different solutions, well, it's not good enough not having the best platform supporting your business and organization productivity. So that's super great. And we've done some you know, research over the year. And Mohsen Ali, you have some findings.
Yeah, Pierre. So when the pandemic was at its initial height in the Nordics, VMware did a global survey with friends on board. We wanted to understand and analyze how enterprises are responding and adapting to the pandemic. We asked 5,700 global respondents across industries, across company sizes and functions. And we have found had a lot of interesting findings, which we of course can share with you all. Please reach out to me, your VMware contact, or your VMware partner to receive full access to the report. For today, I wanted to highlight one aspect, that 90% of employees expect that companies should provide the digital tools for remote work. And Per, this is something we talk with almost all of our customers about. And many of them are trying to embrace this, but there are some challenges. Could you take us through some of these?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, it's you know, mainly from two perspectives. It's the user challenges and it's the IT op challenges. And from a user point of view, it's The most obvious one is, of course, poor voice and video quality once in meeting. That kind of VPN architecture is not suitable for what we're using it for nowadays. And then that inconsistence, of experience working remotely or on site. From a central point of view, it's like, wow, what happened? Every user is now seen as a remote site. So connectivity, security is a big thing. To ration VPN capabilities is not the future. And the biggest objective is to make our co-workers productive, engaged to deliver high productivity. But Mohsen Ali, in your case, you joined VMware, remotely. It was not an office onboarding. You onboarded from home. How was that?
It was thanks, Per. It was a different experience, but I was and still am amazed at how we as a company are coping with the challenge. So from my experience, from receiving my contract to getting the onboarding processes, to getting access to the applications, and actually being able to remote work from home 100%. And this is something I regularly share with our customers, because that something that unifies us all is that we're trying to find a new way of working in this pandemic. And one of the reasons I joined VMware was that the company is constantly evolving and adding new capability to our strategies. If you look back for the last couple of years, we've done a lot of acquisitions, and this is to, of course, support our vision and strategy. Could you please elaborate on how we're evolving and supporting our customers' business initiatives?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are doing that from our long time strategy, any, as we call it. It's about giving people the opportunity to access any type of application from any device of choice, and regardless where the application is hosted. So that gives our customer a great flexibility to optimize their IT platform for the future, supporting their business. Within the future-ready workforce, I would say there are three main things going on right now. So one thing is that we need to re-architect the way we access application in a secure way with a multi-cloud approach. It's about optimizing that experience, delivering digital workspace on physical and virtual devices, but with the underlying network capabilities needed. And then something that's been clear for everybody, the transformation to be even more digital also increased, it also comes with an increased risk. So making sure you have an end-to-end secure architecture is key for the future. And
thanks, Per. I think we're doing making a huge impact for the customers working with us. There are still some who don't know what we actually do in these specific areas. Could you talk about the scope and the reach we have done and we're doing thus far?
Yeah, sure. It's mind-blowing. The deployment of the technology we bring to market is going very, very fast. So, we are having more than 17,000 virtual cloud network customer, more than 280,000 branch sites. We have become the #1 SD-WAN vendor. We are the #1 unified endpoint management leader, and we have more than tens of millions of Workspace One clients at the moment, and we are getting recognized for it. So by the leading analysts, we are seen as the leader when it comes to WAN as infrastructure. We are seen as the leader when it comes to unified endpoint management as well.
Thanks, Per. Great insight.
So with that, I wish you a great vForum. Thank you for the attention, and thank you, Mohsen Ali, and looking forward to see you soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Per and Mohsen, for that. But now let's kick into the real session of today around the SASE that we have ahead of us. And I know you're all anxious to get going. So we just kick it off immediately. Just rock and roll.
So of course, there has been a lot of changes in modern infrastructure, in modern data centers, and in modern application development and consumption. So the old traditional model where we had control over all the users and the consumptions, and there was clear inside and outside where we can put our firewall in between, and where the applications is very traditional and very sequential. This is no longer the case, of course. So there's a lot of applications that have evolved, and an application contains a lot of different components, and those components are probably distributed in a number of places, and the consumption of these applications are also distributed. The DC itself has evolved, and there's a lot of software-defined components nowadays where security and networking is treated the same way as any other software-defined object, and together we form a logical infrastructure that is not the same as the physical infrastructure, where our customers can run their logical infrastructure even though they do not own the physical infrastructure. And of course, the branch has evolved. We are working from the office, we are working from home, and we are working from airports and from customers and coffee shops, or whatever is your example. And of course, this has been even more clear now the past year, since we've been hit by the COVID, that there's a lot of people that find a lot of how do you say, quality working from elsewhere than from the office. And of course, when working from home or working from wherever, you demand the same user experience, and you demand the same services and the same level of security, of course, regardless if you are working from an office, from home, or from anywhere else. So from a SASE point of view, and introducing the SASE point of presence, what we are basically doing now is that we are taking a lot of network functions and taking those functions, creating them as software objects, combining those with a lot of security, software-defined security, and we make this a distributed infrastructure that our customers can consume. And there's a lot of attention around SASE, and probably this is something that will be a main consumption model for a lot of use cases going forward. And of course, we are not only consuming network and network security from persons consuming something in the network. There will be a lot of use cases going forward where there are different types of functions that are consuming the network and is of need of security functions, network security functions. And of course, it doesn't make sense to install how do you say, a fully fledged network security infrastructure whenever there is a need for a consumption of networks. So it makes sense to basically have security functions in the cloud rather than at the site where you have your function. Okay. So when zooming in at a SASE point of presence, and of course, VMware will have a lot of point of presence, SASE POPs all over the world. But if we zoom in on an individual point of presence, we can see that there are a couple of components, and we are introducing this concept now with a couple of functionalities, but going forward, we will of course introduce more and more functionalities into our SASE POPs. But basically what we can say already today is that we can distinguish between a couple of different, how do you say, different components in our SASE point of presence. So the first one is, of course, there has to be a way to into your virtual infrastructure. So we say that we have a zero trust network access, the secure access provided by the VMware end user story. Once you are with your traffic, you are inside of your virtual software defined your network as an overlay network on top of existing infrastructure. And typically the infrastructure will be mostly internet, so someone else's infrastructure. But of course, you can combine it with your own infrastructure, such as MPLS, or if you have your own fiber infrastructure. The network will connect you with all your different components that you have in a secure manner. And then you will do a couple of different use cases. We have a couple of different use cases when it comes to exit of the overlay network. So basically, you can look at it like this. If you see on the left side, we can basically have a grouping of different use cases when it comes to stuff consuming the network and the network security. So from the left side, we can see that we have users or components connected somewhere. So they are at home, they are at customers, at airports, or wherever they are. So basically, we have a standalone device connecting to the overlay network. There's a lot of drivers towards home offices. So probably in the future, we will see even more home users where basically the workplace is from home. So they have an home office. And of course, there will be still a lot of regular offices all over the world. All of these different use cases, users and use cases, they connect to in a secure way, to our overlay network. And on the right-hand side, we can distinguish a little bit about what stuff you are consuming. So we can say that there are basically three different main consumptions that you are doing on the right-hand side. So you're consuming stuff that you have built or at least hosting yourself. So they are in your own data centers. We will also probably consume a lot of SaaS services. So basically services that are trusted but provided by someone else. And then, of course, there will be a lot of stuff that our users will consume out from the internet, regardless if those are applications or if they are just websites that our users are visiting. We can say that these are untrusted applications, and we should be able to cope with all of these. The SASE points of presence basically will be built in the same locations where VMware already have what we refer to as cloud gateways. Because in our SD-WAN offering, already as of today, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different cloud gateways where our customers can consume the overlay network and they can exit somewhere in the world depending on where the application wants to go. And this traffic is protected from a security point of view by ciphering, and also it's protected from a quality point of view. Let's go into details later on. So we have basically enabled our gateway components or gateway places in the world to have these full functions, and then we call it a point of presence. So a SASE point of presence, the ambition from VMware, you can see down below, that is to have 80% of the population in the world to have the ability to connect with whatever device they have. They should have the possibility to connect in uplink direction to a SASE POP within 10 milliseconds of latency. And also the ambition is that we should be able to reach all the major data centers, all the hyperscalers all over the world from a SASE POP in outgoing direction within 5 milliseconds latency. That's the ambition. So when zooming in even more into the functionality of the SASE POP, let's start with the Zero Trust Network Access, the secure access component provided by end user computing. And here I hand over to Nilsson, who is our expert in those matters. Christian.
Now we're going to take a look at how we can achieve zero trust network access from an endpoint perspective. To achieve zero trust, we would need to validate each and every step within the full process. When it comes to Workspace One, we look at the end user, how they authenticate and validate that it's the correct user accessing resources. On the endpoint, we make sure they are configured in the framework we've set up with the company. We distribute application in a secure way to the endpoints with how they should be configured. Once the application is onto the endpoint and the end users are accessing the application, they will start communicate back to either an internal resource or an external resource. But anyway, we need to secure that access to the backend for the communication. With Workspace One, we have full visibility of the users, endpoints, and application, and how they communicate onto the network. That gives us the ability to actually correlate this data and have a dynamic security settings in each and every given moment. Because that is dynamic and it will be changing. You go from corporate network off the corporate network using different applications at different situations. So we keep on validating that all the time. The endpoints, we use device management to configure the devices. We push profiles with payloads on how they should be configured, what security settings that is to be used, what can be changed, and such. And also with device compliance, we always keep on checking that the device is compliant and within the framework we set it to be. If not, we can do remediation of that device or application. So, for instance, if out of compliance, we might be sending just a notification to the end user, but it could also be removing an application, a profile, or network access to certain corporate resources, or even put it onto a quarantine network. But once that is fixed, we can automatically put it back, either resource or application that we had removed for security reasons. So looking at conditional access, in this case, we have a managed device on a known network. We just grant access to the applications. Looking at a managed device, but from an unknown or predefined network, we would prompt for two-factor authentication, so we can validate that it's the correct user trying to access the corporate resources. But as if it's known or unknown network, not under management or out of compliance, in this case jailbroken, we won't give access to any application. If we're looking at the top use case here, it could be either that the Windows device is out of compliance or not under management. So directly at boot up, we will start looking at health attestation and the device posture before granting access to application. Looking at the use case in the bottom here, we have a managed device that is will be validating if it's compliant with AirWatch compliancy. Looking at is secure boot used, do we have encryption enabled, antivirus and firewall is configured the way we should, and is it using the right version of TPM? If passing, we will grant access to our corporate resources. Once using the corporate resources, we would, of course, authenticate it in the pre-configured way we set with our company. Now to the application, we use data loss prevention. So we make sure the application themselves can, how they can communicate with other application, where they can store data or even ingest data into the application, but also leveraging conditional access. For instance, if not in a certain network, we won't be able to access the application. It might be if we're off the network, we would use a multi-factor authentication, while on the corporate network, we would use a certificate to gain access to the application. What is very important also, keeping the privacy of the user so they feel confident to be having a device that is under management. So we make sure to just look at the corporate application and resources provided to the endpoint, and not looking at the personal application, the data that they do have. And if required to remove corporate resources for some reason, we would only remove the corporate managed resources on the device and leave the personal application and data onto the device. And we're not looking at that at all with Workspace One. Now we've been looking at the actual user, how we would secure the device and the application. Now setting up a secure network access. In a traditional environment, we would have our internal resources in the data center secured by a parameter firewall. We would have our endpoint, where we would install the VPN client that would actually tunnel all the traffic into the data center, even those that kind of traffic that we wouldn't want to get into our internal network. With Workspace One, we can do it a little bit much more granular and secure. So for each application, we can set up a tunnel. We specify what application that could be communicating within that tunnel, what domain that they can talk to. For instance, in another tunnel, we might be using a specific browser with a specific URL that can communicate within the tunnel. And before connecting this tunnel, we do make sure that the device is within compliance. Otherwise, we won't connect the tunnel. So the traffic that we wouldn't want to go into our corporate network isn't configured to use any tunnel, so it will be immediately stopped and not transferred into our internal network. To make it even more granular, we could use NSX, leverage the device policies that we already create, security policies that we already created, and just reuse those policies with Workspace One. But actually, what is a little bit new here is the secure access service edge that we provide, that actually is a unified access gateway with a VeloCloud edge. But what is unique here is that we, in a smart and dynamic way, choose where that connections should happen. So for instance, for the internal application, we choose the fastest and most secure way to connect to our internal application through a SASE POP that is located on our internal network. But for SaaS applications, we would connect to a POP that is located closest to the application and has the least unprotected communication to the actual application that they're going to communicate with. If we have unspecified traffic that we're not sure of how to handle, we would send it through a POP and to our secure web gateway and validate whether it should be forwarded to our service that we want to communicate with. If not allowed or not wanted traffic, we will immediately stop it and not forward it. Now I will hand over to my colleague Anders.
So the very heart of our SASE offering is the software-defined WAN, wide area network, SD-WAN. So what the SD-WAN will do is that it will take all the traffic that comes from the left side of the picture. It comes from individual users. It comes from branch offices, home offices, hyperscalers, or other types of equipment. And those users are pushing traffic into our overlay private network that runs on top of whatever physical infrastructure we have, such as internet or MPLS links or whatever we have. So if you look at the SD-WAN and the different components, you will see that we have three main components in our SD-WAN. So to the left in the picture, we have the orchestrator, and the orchestrator is the GUI where you as an administrator log in to manage and to monitor your infrastructure. It will also act as an API gateway if you want to automate stuff. The orchestrator is typically cloud hosted and it runs as a service for you as an end customer. To the right in the picture, we have what we refer to as an edge. The edge is a piece of software ready to be installed somewhere in your infrastructure, and the edge could be packaged as an OVF, as a VM, so that you can install it in an already prepared environment. You can also package that software in a purpose-built appliance, so you can send that appliance to some office or a home user or whomever, and that person doesn't have to have a technical experience. It's just a matter of powering this device on. So it's a zero-touch, plug-and-play kind of installation. And in the middle of the picture, we have the gateway. The gateway is the infrastructure provided by VMware, and it is installed in hundreds and hundreds of places all throughout the public internet. And the gateways is the location where we will combine with the other functionalities. So the gateway will be a part of the SASE POP infrastructure. So what the the SD-WAN brings to the table is the connectivity that connects everything you have that wants to talk with some kind of service somewhere in the world. So of course the SD-WAN brings stuff as ciphering and zero-touch provisioning, zero-touch installation, as we have already mentioned. But the most important thing is what it's doing with the traffic itself, because this is very much more than just ciphering of the traffic. This is not a, how do you say, a managed IPsec service. This is very much more. So if we look at the branch site with the SD-WAN, the green circle in the left part of the picture. So we can see that now. Imagine that this is a site somewhere. Let's say it's an office where we have provided the edge functionality. So it's either a software running or it is a purpose-built box. But what we can notice here is that we have multiple uplinks, and that's one of the use cases of the SD-WAN. So if you have a private MPLS, you can use that if you want to. But we see a lot of companies is skipping the very expensive MPLS link, and they buy not only one but maybe 2 or 3 different plain vanilla public internet connections from, let's say, a couple of different providers. Because one of the things that the SD-WAN can do is bandwidth aggregation. So if you have multiple physical uplinks that you bring to the edge functionality, the edge will combine all these into one very fast link and very high performance kind of link. Everything that runs within the SD-WAN, we do what we refer to as a deep application recognition, DAR. Deep application recognition means that we are looking on who is the source of this particular traffic, who is the destination, what is the destination, what applications are running, what protocols are running, what does the SSL certificate say, and so on and so on. And we can identify a couple of hundred different applications. And depending on what we want to do, we can, on a per application basis, we can treat these applications depending on what we want to achieve. So imagine that we have a highly prioritized real-time service running at this edge location. This application is sending real-time traffic, and what we do with the uplinks, one of the functionalities that we have on the edge is that it's, of course, knows how much bandwidth the individual physical uplinks can bring, but we will also probe these links constantly, so we know exactly what is the latency in every instance of time, and we know also by checking the traffic, we know the number of packets that we lose, and we see the bit errors. So if we want to, we can do what is referred to as a per packet link steering. So if we have a highly prioritized application, we can make sure that that application is using the best suitable link if we have multiple. And if something happens to that link, we can use the other link and then going back, and we can do this not a per session, but a per packet kind of fashion. Of course, we can prioritize if we have a bunch of different applications using the same overlay SD-WAN connection. We can use different kinds of quality of service settings, so you can prioritize your different applications. But we can also do what is referred to as forward error correction, meaning that if we see packet loss or if we see bit errors, the system itself, the SD-WAN itself, can correct those. So removing that burden away from the application to do that end to end. And one of the cool things that we can do is that if we have a highly prioritized real-time service and we suffer from bit errors on the different links, what we may do is that we may send the same information. If we take the individual packet as an example, we can send the same information multiple times on the same link, and possibly combine that with sending the same information over multiple links, just making sure that on the other side we have at least one frame that is combined to be an error-free link if there is no time for doing retransmission, if this is a highly prioritized real-time service.
Now I would like to show you how this looks in real life. And you see me being tunneled into the corporate network, into this test application that we created. Now accessing an SaaS application using Firefox that has been deployed from Workspace One. Now also looking at how my breakout, what it looks like using this application. I go to my IP. As you can see with this application, the closest breakout is with Zscaler in Germany. This also works for native applications. In this case, we're going to use Slack. Up in the right-hand corner, you can see that we are using the tunnel network.
Okay, so have a quick look on how the VeloCloud Orchestrator GUI looks like. So this is cloud hosted, as we said. And when you are logging in, you get into the monitor view. And in the demo setup, you can see we have 4 different locations. We have the VMware office in Solna, where we have our data center. We have installed an edge from the marketplace in AWS Frankfurt. We have my home office, and we have an office in Uppsala, which is a little bit north of Stockholm, where we have a couple of employees. we can see that everything is green here, and we can see the number of connections. So for instance, if I click on my home office, we can see that I have plugged in a fiber from one provider, and also I have a 4G connection from one of the mobile operators here in Sweden. We can see the performance of these links, and also we can get, if we want to, the actual numbers of the latency that we have at this very moment. Because as we said, we are doing probing of all the links all the times in both directions. We also get information of what applications that are running in each site. If this is what we want, we can see the sources that is accessing different destinations. If we go to the edges overview, we also get a map where we see that we have one location, as we said, in AWS Frankfurt. If we zoom in a little bit on Stockholm, we can see that we have 3 different locations: Uppsala, Solna data center, and my home office out in the Stockholm archipelago. If you go to network services, we see that we have 2 things of interest. First of all, we have a connection between the edge software that is running in the data center. The edge is announcing all the prefixes that we have in the SD-WAN side, everything that is known within the SD-WAN site, and that is advertised using BGP into the data center, and the data center is doing the same thing back. All the subnets and prefixes that we have in the data center is known to the SD-WAN. We can also see that we are using Zscaler as a third-party security provider. So we said that we had 4 different locations, and a few of those locations have multiple uplinks. This means that every uplink has its own connection to the Zscaler cloud infrastructure. So in this particular case, if we want to, we can push traffic that we don't trust through the Zscaler functionality, and via Zscaler it is exiting out on internet with the security features of Zscaler. The way you configure this, most of the stuff is handled by a profile. So most of the settings that I have on my edges will be provided in the profile that I'm applying. But if I want to, I can go into the individual edge, and I can say, for this particular edge, I'm overriding the settings in the profile with this specific settings. And let's just have a real quick look into the Zscaler admin GUI. This is not our product, but let me just show you that what we have done in our setup is that we have registered as a partner integration the SD-WAN from VeloCloud. And we can see that now we have the possibility to use all the security features provided by Zscaler when we are exiting from our VeloCloud SD-WAN out on internet. So the final piece in this demo is that I'm showing a little bit of functionality that will be in the long run included in the SASE concept, and this is what is referred to as Edge Network Intelligence. So Edge Network Intelligence aims to analyze on the LAN side, not only on the WAN side of the SD-WAN, but also on the LAN side. So in this example, I'm showing you the client that is installed on my Apple, my MacBook, and you can see that this is providing information about how the situation looks like from my end point of view. And this concludes our demo.
So, Anders, I have a little bit of a thing that I was thinking, looking at this SASE approach compared to a traditional one. What are the main differences with this?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there are a lot of solutions already out there today that can basically take end user traffic into the cloud and do something with it. But the difference with the SASE approach and the SASE POP is that we always go, as we already touched upon, we always go to the closest SASE POP from the source side. But not necessarily that SASE POP is the most efficient one for your exit. And probably this one device will do a lot of different exits. So what we will do is that we will use the closest entrance, being the end user device, and then we will use the fabric, the SD-WAN fabric, to take the traffic in an optimized fashion. And then we take a per destination exit. So I would say that the difference between a true and proper SASE approach is that you have an optimized both incoming and outgoing exit.
So, but looking at SASE solution, what are the main drivers for that?
Yeah, the main drivers is of course the pandemic. That's one of the drivers, because suddenly there are an entire workforce that is nowadays working from home. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And we see a trend that there's a lot of co-workers that feel that maybe working from home is more efficient and better, even though Corona in some kind of future is going away. I still would like to work from my home or from my cabin or from my boat or from whatever. So definitely a mobile and remote workforce. That's the driver. But the short-term focus of the SASE approach is end users. But quite soon we will see an IoT focus also for the SASE use case, because quite soon there will be hundreds and millions and gazillions of IoT devices that actually has the same need for an optimized access, an optimized transport, and then secure and optimized exit. So I would say that the little bit long-term driver for SASE is IoT use case. And by the way, then, when talking about these devices, Christian, you are the end user expert here. What kind of devices would you see is suitable for like a SASE approach?
I would say all endpoints as of today supporting the VMware tunnel that we would support this SASE solution. So mainly looking at Mac, Windows 10, iOS, Android devices, and much more. Even though, as you mentioned it, also around IoT devices, where we have a solution to actually secure those edge gateways, to secure them, put profiles, etc., and put a framework on how they should be acting and how they should be configured to make sure that everything is safe. It's not mainly saying like, okay, we have an OS running on those devices. It could be sensors, but then the gateway. But we control those things, putting a security layer on top of it and making sure they are compliant. And then we leverage the solutions to make sure that all data is transported in a secure and fast way. But also mentioning this, when we're on the endpoints, we acquired a company called Carbon Black, so now that's part of VMware, and we actually can leverage this, and we can see this coming into the SASE solution as securing the device, seeing what's been happening on to the device, seeing history, and also real-time threat analytics on it to make it even more secure. But on that subject, what would we see, Anders, in the SASE solution? What type of added technologies would we see coming into this sort of solution going forward?
Yes, the SASE approach, the SASE is not a SKU of its own. SASE is a bunch of services, and the first thing that we are pushing and the first thing that we are focusing on is end user secure access, zero trust access, together with SD-WAN transport. Today you can combine that with security from your a secure cloud provider, security provider of your choice. But we will add more and more security services into the SASE POPs, and also we will see a lot of if the question is what type of services will we see in longer term when it comes to the SASE approach, then one of the things that is on the roadmap is LAN analytics. So on the WAN side, wide area side, then there is a lot of analytics going on. So we do a lot of probing of all the uplinks. We do like a probing and optimization between the POPs. So we always use the most efficient path, or at least that's the attention. But But on the LAN side, there's a lot to be optimized there as well. So what we will see built into the SASE clients is that we can analyze like the Wi-Fi network, the LAN network, the behavior of the traffic from the devices. So that's one thing. In the SASE POP itself, some of the things that we will see is that we will probably get compute also, optimized computes. So we are entering an area referred to as edge computing. So meaning that imagine that you are like a real-time service. You are your self-driving car. You are something else, and you have a SASE client, and you are connecting to the closest SASE POP. That SASE POP will have the ability to execute software in the future, not today, but in the future, so that we can really utilize the full power and crunch data both in the device and in the POP, and you will always use the closest, most efficient POP to do the crunching in, so most optimized. Speaking of the workforce, Christian, what is the story about bring your own devices? I mean, if now we see employees that has no office to go to, so they go out on the town and they just buy a device and would like to use that. What is the story there? Bring your own device.
So what we've seen there is that either you send home your workforce, they have brought their devices, or that's corporate owned, or maybe even picking up the device that they do have at home. And we can see a challenge of how do we maintain and secure them, give them new policy sets and such. What we would do there is actually the possibility of getting them into maintenance and control very easily by installing the Intelligent Hub, either directing the user to go to the App Store to download it, or for them to download it. Once that Intelligent Hub is on that device, we can start managing it, and we do it over-the-air configuration, so it's very lightweight. It's not a traditional way where we have to be connected into a specific VPN or home to your corporate network, but rather we can do it at any place at any given time, and it's constantly re-evaluated. So with the Intelligent Hub on top of it, we can start sending out configurations, make sure the device is compliant, even though it's a bring your own device, but we still maintain the privacy of the end users. But what it also gives you, the Intelligent Hub, is the possibility to provide an application catalog and one single portal for end users to consume corporate resources, file shares, application and such, and leverage things like single sign-on. And also moving in a little bit on that, them to be utilizing on-prem resources would be using things like per app VPN. And what do we see in kind of possibilities of using the per app VPN, Anders?
The per app VPN, it's kind of a cool feature actually from the end user computing side, where we can isolate applications, and you and I we have seen some examples already today. So for instance, if you are an external, let's say a doctor, and you are going into a hospital and you need access to a bunch of different journal systems and different applications and different systems, and those systems themselves shouldn't see and be able to touch each other, so they should be isolated. But there's a user that is supposed to be able to access all of these. Then per app VPN is having the ability to isolate the applications in the device, having a VPN per application, bringing it into the SASE POP. The SASE POP can take the traffic further into the data centers and the back plane of these applications, and they are entirely isolated all the way. I think we will see more of those use cases going forward, and we see some of them already today. We got the question earlier that the SASE POP, how many SASE POPs are there? And the short answer to that is that I think we are somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 today, as of today. But we know that there are 2,000 something or 3,000 gateways in the SD-WAN infrastructure from VMware. So to answer that question is that we will ongoing bring gateways that today has the regular gateway functionality into becoming SASE POPs. That is something that goes on. So we will see a lot of SASE POPs, and basically we have gateways. We ever have gateways in all the major data centers, all the Equinix, the Azure, the AWS, the Google worldwide, and we will see and convert them into SASE POPs, I'd say. Christian.
Okay, so but there's also a question around here that I've seen possibilities of probing what's in the net, for instance, using independent links. Is that possibility to give a better experience for applications like Office 365 and such? Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, this is very much so that the SASE infrastructure is about removing choke points and remove hairpinning of traffic. So one of the things that we are definitely probing the if we start from the end user side, we probe where to find the closest SASE POP. So we'll connect the end user device to the closest SASE POP. But the SASE POP can use the infrastructure of the SD-WAN to take the most efficient path going over internet. And the question was Office 365. The easiest way to identify an Office 365 is to look into the certificate and see that, hey, this is an Office 365. We can see in what data center this is actually residing in, and so we can take the SD-WAN, the most efficient SD-WAN path over the fabric and into the device, into the backplane of the application, I should say. So definitely, yes, it's very much possible. We have a lot of, and there is actually a project within VMware called the Project Pathway. And the Project Pathway is again trying to provide an infrastructure that is less router-centric and more cloud-centric, meaning that if we have these thousands of gateways or SASE POPs in the future, all throughout the world, then these POPs can basically probe each other. So when traffic is coming in, maybe the global BGP routing table isn't the best path for a certain application, depending on where it's going. Maybe we can optimize depending on the traffic situation, because the SASE POP will know a lot about the current traffic situation. So optimizing ingress, optimizing the fabric, and optimizing and secure the exit. That's what we are aiming for with the SASE approach.
We had one question here regarding they have a little bit of that we might be using a little bit of a wording that is new to the people there, but what is a SASE POP?
Secure Access Service Edge. So it's not SASE, it's SASE, Secure Access Service Edge. And the SASE POP is the SASE point of presence. So it's an infrastructure node out in a public data center that can provide functionality to whatever device that is connecting to it. Okay, but it's been a pleasure, Christian. It's been a pleasure to work with you and the entire team. And as we always say, don't be a stranger. If you have any questions regarding the solutions from VMware, then let us know. Talk to me, talk to Christian, or anyone else in the team. We are happy to help you and assist you in pilots and POCs. But we are up for today and up for now. So what we say now, me and Christian, is stay classy, stay sassy, San Diego. Yay. And thank you.